episode 531 of Morelia Python Radio, and we're talking to Lucas Bognara of Lab Exotics, and he's also from the podcast the Retic Lounge. We will be talking about the ethics of keeping retics, reticulated pythons. I would argue are probably one of the prettiest pythons in the world. What do you think?
They're gorgeous. Yeah, I have one. I have one because, and she is absolutely stunning. Retics are one of those animals that they draw you in no matter what age they're at, whether they're, small and bright and beautiful, or when they just get big and they maintain that cool color, and I think everybody in herpetoculture has a favorite more for color retic. Even if they don't own retics, they still have a favorite more for color.
I would say that just a normal retic is probably, the orange eyes, sometimes they have yellow heads, the iridescence, the pattern,
the pattern where they got their name.
Yeah, it's just amazing. But Lucas, he has a weekly podcast that focuses on putting good, solid info out on keeping and breeding reticulated pythons and everything that comes with it, right? So he's trying to do it both of those guys are trying to do it in a responsible way. I think the problem is that big constrictors are a huge responsibility, and it's important that people understand, the actual level of commitment it takes to keep these snakes happy and healthy.
They really, really are, and
you know this better than me at this point.
I have several what would be considered large constrictors. As much as we don't want to think about it, olive pythons could very easily click into that little box of needing a lot of space. It's one of those things that nobody really kind of prepares you for, and a lot of people get the big Burmese python, the big retic, the African rock python, and they think it's going to be cool, and then food bills, space requirements, it can add up very big. And I'll tell you right now from experience, trying to get mites off of a 16-foot retic is just a hell I don't wish on anybody. So, oh God.
I can't imagine.
Dude, the amount of those little bastards that can hide under one scale of an animal that big is just daunting. But
wow,
it's very much dog logic, bigger the dog, bigger the stuff you have to get it, the more shit you have to deal with, the more things that you thought you'd never have to deal with, I bet you're allowed to keep food on your countertops.
I am.
I am not. It's like
it's very true.
Yeah, it's like I don't think you have to worry about dogs going under the fence. I have to worry about them going over it. That's just where you got to go. So when you have a big snake like a retic, you have to worry about the space accommodation for it. And then the problem is a lot of people tend to stop at half the length, and it's like good enough. It's like, well, is it? Because I would want to say that a lot more of the people that we see, that have big snakes in these huge, really nice enclosures, I think they get more enjoyment out of it. So,
yeah, I think there's a mystique about a large constrictor. I've been a fan of large constrictors ever since I was a kid. There's, obviously Burmese pythons were more of what I was into, but I guess at the time retics weren't even really a thing. It wasn't until later on that I remember my dad bringing in these wild caught mainland retics that were just
Papa
insane,
Burke, dude.
Man.
I think me and your dad would have gotten along much better. It was just like,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
he
it's just like
feisty stuff.
Exactly. Your dad's like, let's bring in these wild caught mainland retics that just hate my guts and let's figure out what happens. Yeah, that's awesome.
He did. I remember that they got a pretty good size, and then I remember him saying that he's like, "This is just too much."
But that's
much,
that happens a lot with people. I mean, I had a Burmese python. I had an albino Burm that was just a pet that she got to a point where I couldn't accommodate her, and I had to move her on, and that always kind of stuck with me. Is that it's like I outran my coverage when it came to that animal, just because I couldn't. I was not in a place where I could get her a bigger cage. I didn't have any place where I could set up a really large enclosure for her, and then somebody else who worked at a zoo and wanted to do educational programs offered to take her. And it's like, well, all right. And they set her up in like a 10-foot cage and stuff like that. So it worked better for her, but it almost seems like the mentality for large constrictors is play with it till it gets to a certain size, and then that's when you can sell it for the big bucks, or you end up just shuffling it off to somebody else. And I don't know.
And even back then, it was a lot harder to.
It is.
To send that on to somebody, if you will. There
wasn't a ton
of people that were into snakes and stuff back then. But
there's always like one or two shows a year that you go to, where it just seems like there's a bunch of people selling large constrictors. I don't know if it's people calling it quits on a big constrictor project or collection, but there's like one show a year where all of a sudden, like, there's like one or two tables that just have like the Christmas tree tubs, bins with big like huge constrictors.
Yeah. Now that you're saying that, I'm seeing that as I was walking around shows and stuff.
It's just like, once or twice a year, it's just like, that's when people have decided they've had enough.
I think that, for sure, they can be very rewarding captives.
They can be.
I think that if you keep them correctly, right? I think that definitely, they, like I said, they can be super rewarding and bring you, because they're really kind of, you hear a lot of people talk about how they're intelligent.
They're smart as shit. Like my Retic knows when I'm thawing food for everybody else, and she'll just kind of lay across her big shelf right to where the door is that I open up things, and she'll just lay there. And the thing is with her is that I love her. She's never gotten into a point where she's she bit me. And I have taken her places to show her off as like educational kind of deals, or like to my nephew's birthday party or something like that, and she's never had a big problem. She scares the crap out of me just because of what she is and how big she is. It's like, I'll feed everything, and then it's like, all right, I need to take a break until I get my head space in order to go deal with her. Like, because it's
almost
not,
like dealing with a venomous, but in a different way.
You cannot rush it. You have to do it proper. You have to open the cage. You have to present the food item. You have to let her wrap it. You have to put her back in. You have to close all the doors. You have to do all that. And it's just, I feel like that making a mistake with her would be bad, I think. Yeah. I mean, I've been bit by my adult olives and stuff like that, and that hurts, but I think her would be, I don't think I would enjoy that at all. So
no. I think that I think that Retics in particular have come under a lot of scrutiny over the past week or two because of the Sansom Pruitt ordeal. Yes. And when we talk to Lucas, we'll get into that, because he was part of the group of people that brought it to the light, if you will. Yeah. So there's that. And I don't know. I really, the Retic Lounge really kind of reminds me of NPR, right? These guys are not necessarily, experts, and they say that right from the gate. But I think that their enthusiasm and, dare I say, passion for these animals sort of puts them in a direction to where they can sort of put the information out there and talk to the people that, similar to what we do with carpets, or Morelia.
Lucas, welcome to Morelia Python Radio.
What's going on? Thanks so much for having me on.
Totally. So we like to kind of do a little bit of a quick intro, just kind of you give people a feel about you in general before we kind of get into the deep questions. First one, always, what brought you into reptiles? What kind of led you to us?
I mean, reptiles in general, probably like most people's story, started off as a kid, and I was just I was 5 years old, and I know a reason why I say 5. It was because of a major move, moving to another city. But walked into a pet store this pet store had sharks and monkeys, and it was a really cool place. And I was just fascinated at the reptile section. And, I guess, I can thank my parents for this, but my dad just kind of saw my eyes lit up. And every time we'd go to the pet store, I'd go straight over there. And then my birthday or some gift, some special time of the year, I'm not sure, but I got my first red rat snake. And that's kind of where it began. Unfortunately, that red rat snake got out somehow. I kind of play a joke. I play a joke on my brother. He was kind of going through a hippie phase at the time, and so I'm always blaming him. I'm like, you took it out and just put it back into the wild. I was like, you couldn't stand to see it in a cage. Yeah, from there it evolved, and I started keeping ball pythons, and then I was like 14, 15, like a sophomore in high school, and got multiple ball pythons with the intention of trying to breed. That was back in the day when like it wasn't frowned upon to breed a spider. So I had a spider and a pastel, and I was gonna make bumblebees. Like I was super excited about that. I ended up getting a coastal carpet python when I was 16, and I ended up moving away to college to play baseball. Couldn't keep animals or reptiles. Was busy all the time, and so I rehomed quite a few of my animals. And then got back into it in 2018 with Retics. Came back strong.
So what brought you to Retic? Like, what was it? Was it a certain animal at a show? Was it an online picture you kind of hung up and stared at longingly? I mean, yeah. I was weird growing up, and like I was actually on forums when I was a kid. And actually looking at the different pictures, I was learning about blood pythons, green tree pythons, carpet pythons, all these different things just while I was in high school. And the year that I graduated, it was back in 2011, I came across a forum on snakes.com of a Honey Island reticulated python, and read the post. They were talking about super dwarfs and the size of them. I had always loved the big snakes, right? But as I got older, I realized like, that's really big. But when I finally saw like super dwarf and people were talking about the smaller retics and everything, I dove into that for the next several years until I first got my own, and just like obsessively just like went into them. When I'm interested in a species, I become kind of obsessive about it, not in a bad way, but I want to learn everything I can. Yeah, I did the same thing with green tree pythons. Like those are my favorite snakes. I've wanted one for the longest time, and I'm finally going to be getting my first one. So I had that Retic obsession, and we're still going strong. Cool.
Very cool.
So, kind of before we dip into the whole ethics things of that, can you give us a little bit of a brief overview of where your collection sits now, size of it, and your approach to keeping retics?
Yeah. So right now, I have less than 20 what I would consider adults, right? Like my definition of adult isn't just because of breeder size, they're an adult. So in reality, in terms of like adult snakes, I really only have 2. As far as breeding maturity goes, I probably have about like 10 to 12, but I have quite a few animals that I'm growing up. So from my personal collection, I have 25 right now. They're all in my garage. And I did a complete remodel. I insulated the walls. I have a mini split. I run all of my snakes, my retics on ambient. I don't do gradient. And it's on a humidifier and dehumidifier. And so I have a hatchling rack of hatchlings that, I've hatched out that are for sale. But in terms of just how I keep, it's evolved. But where I'm at now is I have 2 8-foot enclosures. I have 2 7-foot enclosures, a bunch of 5-foot enclosures, 4-foot enclosures. Right now, I only have 7 animals that are in racks, and out of those 7, 4 of them are small animals, like under a year old. And I've kind of just been going through this phase of I have 2 racks in my garage in the corner. I'm just trying to phase them out, and so that's kind of where I'm at. And to be honest, I've kind of hit a point where I know what future breedings are going to have in store for me with holdbacks. And so I'm already playing the puzzle game in my mind of what's staying, what's gonna, what's going out, because I'm pretty much at the point where it's me every day, and then I have a helper. He's in high school. He's supervised when he comes over, just loves reptiles and loves retics, and he comes over and helps 2 to 3 times a week for a couple hours. And I'm realizing just I'm at a comfortable level where this is what I can manage if I didn't have anyone. And so for me, growth right now is really not going to be an option.
Right. So are you focused in on a specific, with your projects, right? Your breeding projects? Is this like a specific, are you doing the dwarf locality into a certain morph that you're going for?
So my niche and like what I consider my specialty, or what I have the most passion for, I would say it's locality reticulated pythons. So most of the people look at me and they're like, Lab Exotics, that's a super dwarf breeder. I have super dwarf islands, and I work with crosses, and ultimately my goal is to always make a more manageable size retic. But I'm a locality guy at heart. I have 8 localities. And that's where my passion lays. Now, I'm also working with a high-end ocelot project and Retic Ghost projects that basically what my goal is for all of my projects is to just selectively breed those to different localities to be able to pull out the best phenotypic expression of each of those morphs. And then once I have that nailed down, then start the shrinking process with taking it back into, the super dwarf stuff. Super dwarfs are great, but they can take away a lot of pattern and thick blacks and color, and so it's a dance to play.
Really, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, do you? What has been your experience so far with that? So the ones that you have, the localities that you have that you would consider dwarfs, or what size are you looking at?
Yeah, so my largest locality right now, and probably the one that gets the heaviest, are my Solayers. Solayers are one of the 2 original true quote-unquote dwarfs out there. There's Solayer and there's Jampea, right? And so Solayers are one of those true dwarfs. Now, and we'll get into all this later on, but my Solayer female right now is probably about 13 feet and 70 pounds. Probably maybe even a little bigger than 13 feet. But she's about 70 pounds, and depending on her day, she wants to kill me or she doesn't. She's an F1 that's 13 years old.
What is it with those F1s?
It's always the F1s. I don't know why. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like they were pulled from the wild. Oh, wait. Yeah. So,
my second largest locality, I would say, is the Mindanao or Southern Philippines. Extremely rare locality here in the United States, especially because the Philippines banned being able to export them back in the 80s. Some illegal stuff happened that they were able to get them into Indonesia, like the main island. And then once they were there, that's fair game to get them imported. But there's only a small group, and right now there's only 1.1 wild-caught Mindanao Philippines left. So they're going to be the same length as the Solayers, but they are a super lean bodied retic from my observation and talking to people in the Philippines. Now, just to give you a reference, my Philippine right now, my female, she's an F1. She's 5 years old. She's about 11 feet, and she is the same girth or width as my wild-caught Kalatoa. That's about 9.5 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
So super lean. Still on the longer side, but because they don't weigh a ton, I don't have to drag her around like I do my Solaire when I have to get her out and clean her. I have a Jampea as well that, Jampeas are dwarfs, the second true dwarf that also go into that. There have been some recorded pretty small Jamps, but on average, I would say with Jampea, you're going to end up in the 11, 13 foot range, but there's been 16 foot Jampeas recorded. And it wasn't super uncommon back in the early 2000s with the Gaspar line Jamp that got pretty big. And then the next size down, I would have my Ternate or Ternate Islands. That's a very heated debate on whether they are dwarf or not. I hate those terms, by the way, and we'll talk more about that. But for everything that I've said is a dwarf so far, let's just talk and say medium-sized locality.
Okay.
And so Ternate Island is also a medium-sized locality, but the whole debate of whether they are a dwarf or not is just because the original two islands of Jampea and Solaire have been called dwarf for 20, 30 years now.
Gotcha.
And so now that Ternates are new, right? To just put the dwarf label when they weren't part of that group. But at the end of the day, they're medium size. So I have a proven breeder right now that's 4 years old, who's only 7.5 feet. I have another 4-year-old that's not proven, that's about the same size. And I have a 3.5-year-old female that is about 7 feet. My male is 4 years old, and he's about 8 feet. Now, and just forewarning for anyone listening, because a lot of people, they'll make the assumption of, well, how do they feed? I probably feed a lot heavier than most people that are breeding super dwarf, or smaller medium localities.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I hear a lot, that people underfeed them to sort of keep them in a smaller size.
Small size, yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it. Clearly, when you're talking about insular dwarfism, right, you have to take into consideration the sparsity of prey, or if there's a lot, it's typically not large prey items because they're on a tiny island that broke away thousands of years ago. And so, if you feed them how they eat in the wild, absolutely you're going to end up with a smaller snake, but in captivity where they're not, going weeks at a time without food, or they're not eating smaller meals. People are feeding them pigs and rabbits and large, mammoth, colossal sized rats. You got to expect that they're going to get bigger.
Yeah, sure.
So then I also have Kalatoa. I have Kayuwadi, which are considered, super dwarfs. Those are going to be adults, from 8 to 11 feet for females, and those are like the super dwarf localities there that I'm working with. So I've produced a clutch of Kayuwadi and Kalatoa this year. I'm hoping to hit Solaire and Philippine. So yeah, that's just a little about the islands and their size range that I'm working with.
I know this wasn't on the questions, but it just popped into my head. I'm curious, how does the clutch size for the medium size compare to the large size? Are they still producing that huge amount of eggs?
So that's actually that's a good question. I'm happy that you asked that, because a lot of people would think the smaller the snake, that the less eggs that they have, larger the snake, more eggs. But because I've had the opportunity to either hatch these clutches or I'm close with people that have hatched them from different islands, it's weird because Ternate, being a medium-sized locality, they lay eggs that are 3 to 350 grams each.
Jesus.
So Ternate clutches are very small. On a big clutch, you're talking about 12 to 15 eggs.
Okay.
But my wild-caught Kalatoa that I have here, that's 9.5 feet, pumped out 28 eggs.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were on average about 92 to 96 grams an egg.
Okay. Okay.
So locality plays the female plays a very big part in that.
So I guess we'll just jump into this here because it sort of flows with what we're saying. But one of my frustrations when it comes to the whole retic thing, and they sort of paint the dwarf and the super dwarf as the same size as a carpet python, right? Mm-hmm. So a carpet python, you're looking at, yes, I wonder sometimes, does it have to do with that maybe the retic breeder that's speaking on this doesn't understand sort of the nuances of carpet python size, similar to what you're saying about these different island localities and how they can be different. They just look at a book and it says that, coastal carpets will get, what do they say, 10 to 13 feet?
Yeah.
Right? I guess that's true, but that's nothing that what we have in the States. So when you're comparing, a super dwarf to a carpet, to me, it's not even the same ballpark. And to sort of go off of what you just said, you're saying the eggs are 96 grams, you said, somewhere in that area?
Mm-hmm.
Carpets are what, 20?
Yeah.
So, it's more like a scrub python to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I consider scrub pythons and retics to be pretty similar. I consider like the scrub python is just the more athletic version of a
retic.
And to be honest, I mean, if a retic is kept well, or you see a retic in the wild that's probably in its midlife, looks very athletic and agile and can climb trees and do all that. But when you talk about like an adult, full-grown mainland retic, they're still lean, but they're big animals. Whereas scrubs are definitely just they stay just like, they look ripped, right? They're like the bodybuilders of pythons. But I don't. Man, I've heard, to be honest, when you said they compare them to carpets, the first thing that popped in my head in terms of size, right? First thing that popped in my head is, well, at least it's not as bad as I've heard people comparing them to some large corn snakes.
Really?
So it drives me crazy.
Look, but those are, I mean, I'm broken. Good job. So it's but like a corn snake, a 6-foot corn snake doesn't look like it's a 6-foot corn snake. Like you have to stretch that thing out when it's dead to be a 6-foot corn snake.
Yeah,
I mean.
I guess this is where the ethics of keeping retics comes into play, right? Because if you're selling retics and you're
got to be honest,
something,
right?
Yeah. So what's your thoughts?
My thoughts on just size in general. Again, I think where a lot of people are coming from is if they're breeding their adult size, right? And so many people, I hear a lot of people say like, well, all you have to do is just ask like the size of the parents and the grandparents, right? And it's like, even if we're 3 generations in, grandparents are still, 10 years old and parents could be, 4, sometimes even 3.5, and we're still not looking at an accurate, length. But I mean, I've seen a lot of carpets in person, and I've seen a lot of super dwarfs in person, and there's no comparison. Carpets are without a doubt smaller. And I think what people are just trying to grab onto is, let's give people a visual representation of, trying to get an idea of how small these retics can be. But the reality of it is that a pure super dwarf, like a Kalatoa, or even like a Karampa is supposedly the smallest locality out there. Even though I've seen just as many that are just as big as Kalatoa, but you're still looking at, on the average size at 10 years old, 8 to 10, 11 feet for some that get really big. And I would definitely say that a 8-foot retic is a lot more snake than a 6.5 foot, even a huge 7-foot carpet.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just think the strength of that animal alone, is just going to be completely different.
And so is the build. Like a 10-foot carpet and a 10-foot retic are going to be drastically different.
Right.
Just because they're just going to be the body weight and just the size of a 10-foot retic versus a 10-foot carpet from tip to tip is just going to not be. I mean, first it's going to be fat, but it's like it's not going to be healthy, but it's going to be different.
Now, what I try to tell people is, I say the I say 8 to 10 feet, right, for a Calotoa female. And that turns a lot of people off. And don't get me wrong, 8 to 10 feet, especially a retic who has a very strong food response. It's not for everyone, right? It's not the best pet snake out there. Anybody that says a retic's a great pet snake, stop, rewind, take that back. Right. But what I really try to tell people, like if you're set on having a retic, we have like this tendency to look at an animal and let's say we're 6 feet, right? Oh, well, if it's bigger than me, that's really big. But I'm not a big person. I'm like I give myself 5'11". I'm really like 5'10" and a half. But I can hold an 8-foot super dwarf in one hand that's stretching up to my forearm when it's coiled around. They're 8 to 10 feet is still manageable if you really want a retic, and of course you have the space to house one properly, right? Sure. And so I try not to. Where I come from is I give that honest truth of size and expectations, because I don't know why other breeders tend to undershoot the size, but I'd rather overshoot and prepare people rather than undershoot, and then everyone start talking crap about how I'm lying about the size of my animals and my quote unquote lineage and bloodlines.
It almost feels like the little glass bowl with the little fake palm tree that you get for your little red-eared slider. And it's like, don't worry, he won't need anything else ever. It's like, well, no, that's not true at all. Like, it's,
It's funny you mentioned that, because on the episode coming out this Friday, the part 2 history, we talk about like, there's a picture of a magazine of like, in a little ad saying you can own a little turtle, and that's the house, right? The little, little plastic thing.
Like, it comes with a little plastic thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
But it's like, buy this, buy the 4-foot cage, and you will need nothing else ever again. It's like, but that may not necessarily be true, and I'd rather overshoot. Yeah,
I think to your point, right? I think that so this was my experience when I was getting into scrubs, right? A lot of people were saying to me, like, it's not that they didn't want me to have the animal or didn't want me to, not buy it or whatever. They're not trying to sell it, but it was, it seemed like, obviously they're not being produced like retics, right? So there wasn't that issue of, trying to get rid of them because you have so many. There wasn't the more factor put into it, so there wasn't the overproduction, because let's face it, scrubs, for most part, people are starting to get it down now, but I mean, this is what, I had scrubs in 2009. So, you're talking over 10 years ago, and it was just completely different because they wanted to make sure that you understood what this animal was. I mean, the food response on a scrub, they're going for your face. I don't know if that's the same with the retic. I've only had, I was saying before we started, when I grew up, my dad had mainland retics, which were wild caught, that came in the 80s, which were just insane.
They weren't friendly.
They weren't fun at all. No, their food responses are definitely intense, but again, I go back to just scrubs being that more agile and quicker. They're in your face just a little quicker, right?
Yeah. And to your point, it was more of the overshoot rather than the undershoot, because you would take this animal home and you think, and even sometimes, Owen, you've experienced the same thing probably, where and it's probably what you're saying with the localities that you're working with. It's like you look at the cage and you're like, God, that snake's not that big. It's curled up, and you're like, it's not that big. And then you start pulling it out. You're like, oh shit! There's something.
Eventually, it'll stop.
It's a never-ending rope.
Like, what the hell?
That happened with my breadlive this week. I went and moved her to a bigger cage, and I'm like, eventually she'll end. I know she has a tail.
It's like pulling the string out of a magician's hat, right? It's like
exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah. So let's back up, because we could have jumped ahead. But what does what does keeping retics ethically mean to you? Like what is that? What is that?
Yeah. So, you made a comment and you mentioned how people have been keeping scrubs 2009, right? And people are just finally starting to figure it out, right? people have been keeping retics since the 80s, and we're just starting to figure it out, like right now. And what I mean by that is, like, if you go back historically and you look at how retics were kept, they came in nasty. And, you know, back in the day, there was the entertainment. Like, you have to look at the zeitgeist of that era, right? And back in the day, these snakes were used for entertainment and also for breeding. People wanted to breed them, wanted other people to buy them. And so what ended up working for breeders was just, you know, it just so happened that what got people successful to breed retics was just keeping them in smaller enclosures, and no UV lighting, because, you know, snakes don't quote unquote need them. And there was this mindset for over a decade of, if your retic is reproducing, it's healthy and happy.
Right.
And what now we're starting to realize is, some of the most neglectful keepers ever of retics and breeders have been prolific breeders. You could, their snakes can be literally, you know, this idea that, like, you know, retics are easy to keep. They're not necessarily easy to keep. They just, they withstand neglect the longest.
Right.
And so now I thank a lot of my Patreon members all the time, and a lot of the new people coming in, because, you know, whether the marketing of the size of these animals was accurate or not, people are coming in because they're hearing about super dwarfs, and they're coming in from different industries, and they're like, they're like, I'm not going to keep a 12-foot retic in a 5-foot enclosure, because they keep other animals that they provide UV lighting. Yeah. And so we're finally in the very beginning stages of providing more. And so ethical keeping, especially when it comes to being a breeder and ethical breeding, is number one, manage the size of your collection. I don't know anybody who long-term successfully has been able to breed retics alone for a job, right? So this idea that you have to pump out X amount of animals to produce X amount of dollars so that you can feed your family, it's I mean, name one person that's done it 10 years and is successful. And if you mention all the big names like Prehistoric Pets or Nerd, or they're doing more than just retics. They have zoos. They have social media that's bringing in probably most of their income, right? And so, because when a retic is grown, it's not the cute little hatchling that you plop out of a tub and you just dump out the substrate and you put it back in and snake goes back in. Cleaning is an overhaul. They piss gallons. And they're I don't even keep any big retics, right? I just said my longest one's 13 and a half feet, and the crap of her is probably the size of my forearm.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And so the whole days of just like mass producing and having a bunch of animals, that now to me is seen as unethical, because you are not giving the level of care that you need to, unless you have like 7-8 employees cleaning for you.
Right.
Another part in terms of ethical breeding is we have to start getting them out of vision enclosures. We're seeing more and more now that these snakes are semi-arboreal, very active, and keeping them in a 6x3 that's 18 inches tall is no longer for large size retics is not okay. And you know, some people are, the people that are still doing it, I'm not taking jabs at them, because I know a lot of the people that are starting to change their approach. They're selling more animals, or they're selling away some of the collection and their breeders. They're shrinking down the collection and they're increasing cage size, because the biggest factor in keeping retics ethically is space, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's important that they have a shelf, or that they have a way to elevate, and it's not just it's not just a single dimension. And it's also a way to give them more area without having to go with a massive enclosure.
Right.
And, I really believe that a huge part of ethics when it comes to us breeders, we have to stop just pairing to pair and overproducing. There are enough retics out there. They're being overproduced. And part of being an ethical breeder and keeper of these animals is if you plan to breed or you are breeding, you have to be hyper-focused, selective, intentional with your pairings, and don't just make the same thing that 8 other people just made, and now there's 150 phantom motleys out there in the world. And what happens when there's 150 of the same gene animal? There's rarely 150 people that want them, and so now you start decreasing the price. And now when you decrease the price, that opens up a whole other conversation of ethics. Should retics be $200? Right.
Right.
There's so much, but in reality, it's staying away from obesity by providing more space to increase activity. If you have the means, I would encourage you guys, use UV lighting. Like, why not? If you have the means and ability to, just experiment. I'm running an experiment right now that I'm posting results on the Retic Lounge, and just in my one animal that I'm doing it, I've noticed changes that now every new enclosure that I get, I have a mount installed to put a UV bulb on there.
Has the observations been behavior, or has it been the look of the snake? Does it look healthier, or like what?
Or a
mix of both.
So to be honest, I didn't even consider like the looks of. So this is a young animal, and so in reality, the ability to have an obese retic at 1 year old is not likely. They'll turn all of it into length and growth. But really, what I'm measuring and what I'm observing is the main behaviors that people kind of relate to retics, which is number 1, inquisitiveness, number 2, food response, and number 3, defensiveness.
Okay.
So those are the 3 variables that have been observed. And I also, just the fact that I see the snake under the bulb, like the bulb does not have any, like the bulb, there's a hide above where the bulb is, and then there's a shelf where the bulb is, and then it has a sky hide and 2 hides on the floor of the enclosure. If that snake didn't want to be out in the open getting the UV, it would be in a hide, because that's what a snake at 1 year old does. It hides. And she's out in the open, just soaking up those UVs. Now, I don't know implications in terms of breeding and all that. I'll find out, because I just got my Soleil female a new enclosure, and I have a bulb in there installed. So we'll see when I give it a shot this year.
I sort of bang the same drum for carpet pythons, right? Exactly what you just said, right? Because, I was keeping carpets in racks because, similar to back in the day, I was keeping them in cages, and I would provide shelves or perching or something like that, and they never used it. So I was sort of like, maybe they don't need that, right? So I fell into the trap of, wanting to have it all, wanting to produce it all, that kind of thing, and and more animals in the same space to where I should have had less animals in the same space to where I could provide bigger cages. And I've seen, I don't know if people keep retics outside other than, I think Tom Crutchfield might, but you do see a lot of carpet python people where they'll keep diamond pythons outside because they can withstand that stuff a little bit better. But you can definitely feel a difference in their scales are different, right? They just feel different, like they're tougher or something. And I don't know how to explain it. And to me, that there's something about, out in the wild. You also look at, the reason I brought up color, right, is because, you have a Brettles python that's out in the middle of the desert, and it'll come out and you see these wild Brettles, and they're like screaming red. But then the ones we have in captivity are dark and dull. But then, like, is that because they're missing something from that? I don't know. These are just things that, like, we could do it better. It's like we've sort of made it this far. Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Everything's good. But like, can't we take it another step? Isn't it our responsibility of our generation to sort of like take it to the next step, right? So that the next generation can take it to the next step. Right. I don't know. It's sort of.
I love where you're going with that, and I couldn't agree more. And I'll be very forthcoming too, because I'm speaking very high and mighty in regards to ethics. But I started keeping retics very early in 2018, and even just back in 2018, the racks were so much more accepted. And, and so I did that, dude. I grew massively. 2018, I had one retic. Later in that year, I had 2. By the end of 2020, I had 6. And then literally from 2020 until now with my hatchlings, I got 50 something.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me to realize, like, whoa, right? Like, I don't have to make everything. And clearly, now that they're growing, I'm sure as hell not going to have enough time for what I originally had planned to do. But yeah, I think when it comes down to the ethics, kind of to summarize it, it's more of, before when snakes were used for entertainment, they were used to breed and to be a source of income and money. We have to change it and start putting it back on. It needs to be about the animal's well-being. And if you're able to make a profit, great. If you're able to break even, that's still phenomenal. But we got to start, and we're starting to see the younger generation. And what I mean by the younger generation of retic keepers, it's not like age. It's just like they are new
people coming in.
Right? New people coming in to retics. They're turning the retic industry upside down. I can't tell you how many people that most people see in a great light in terms of being a breeder, and these new people are coming in. They're like, are you kidding me? They keep their 13, 14-foot snakes and 6-foot visions, like, and they're turning the shit upside down.
Let me ask this question, because I've always thought that the pushing that you see in retics has to do with the fact that they're trying to go up. Anytime I've ever handled, a retic, it's like, especially young ones,
straight up,
they're trying to go up.
Yeah.
So to your point, when you're just keeping that 18-inch cage, they're not able to do that. Is that what they're trying to do? I would imagine, in my experience with working with them, they're much more active than all these other pythons that I've worked with.
They're so active. Yeah. There's not a time that I walk in my garage that I don't have half of my snakes in enclosures moving around. So there's a lot of reasons for. Well, I wouldn't say there's a lot, but there's 2 mainstream reasons on why retics push. Number one is they're too hot. And let me even just talk about that real quick. Like, people historically have been keeping retics way too hot. These are snakes that for half of the year, the lows get into like the 63, 64, 65. And I actually did a podcast. I was a guest on another podcast on Saturday, and I was making this point and pulled up the weekly forecast for Kalatoa, one of the Superdwarf Islands. And the week high was 82. And so I again, just to emphasize the point that, like, the whole idea of like a 90 degree hot spot like this is not a ball python. So pushing one, like, the main reason is heat. They're way too hot and they don't have an area to cool down. Number 2 is they're hungry and you're not feeding them enough. You're underfeeding so the other reason is for food related reasons. Now, retics have a high level of intelligence, and intelligence is kind of a loaded word when it comes to reptiles and how we measure that and all that. But what I can tell you in terms of intelligence is that they are very, very quick to learn. You can basically apply behavioralism to a retic and they catch on really quickly. For example, if you want to teach it that it's time to eat, and so you knock on the cage 5 times on the side, they eventually, that 5 knocks on the side of the cage, they're boom. Anything that walks by the front glass, they're going to slam thinking it's food.
Gotcha.
They're very, they can be habituated very, very well. And so if you are someone who feeds your retic every 7 days religiously, and you decide that I'm going to start doing random feedings, that snake is expecting that it might not need the calories, it might not be hungry, but because it's been conditioned to be fed, you'll see it moving around and pacing, and then if you don't feed it, that evolves into pushing. Now, to speak on your point in terms of not giving them enough room to move or enough height, one of our Patreon members has a retic that has a chronic pushing issue right now, and I've talked to this person on the phone. everybody on the Discord has been trying to give them every little bit of tips and advice. We have an episode out about pushing where I've had dozens of people like, hey, that stopped my retics pushing. And I'm like, great. It's not working for this guy. And I started getting more information, and this is not fact, right? This is just my observation of the whole situation and what I'm observing. But he would let his snake out during cleanings, roam around. It liked to get into one of his dressers. It would move around, and he would let it stay out for 3 to 4 hours. Okay. And now the snake, when it goes back into the enclosure, I've talked to him up and down, and he probably hates me because every time he asks me again, hey, what can I do? I'm like, I ask him every time, what are your temps?
Right.
What size meal are you feeding it? And everything according to him. He has sent me screenshots of his temp guns. Right. Everything is on point. And so to me, it seems like this snake got a taste of freedom. And it's just like, just get me the hell out of this box. And, one thing that people don't realize about pushing is that, so retics, because of that, the intelligence that they have, I had a snake that developed, so retics can develop like OCD, like pushing, basically to the sense that like if part of your husbandry, feeding or temperatures were off and it started pushing and you didn't correct it soon enough, you can correct all the issues, but they will still have this obsession to keep pushing. Even though everything is absolutely perfect. And so that happened to my very first retic I got. And what I ended up having to do to reset it was, she wasn't big at the time, so it's not like I was abusing her by doing this, but I ended up having to put her back into a 3-foot hefty tub for like 6 to 8 months for her to finally not be able to have anywhere to push.
Right.
And then I put her back into a different enclosure, and the pushing stopped.
Okay. So it's kind of like a reset, kind of.
It's so weird.
It's so pushing's complex. But yeah, I'm even starting to learn and observe more based on others' experiences that, space can absolutely be a reason to push. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen images of like really nasty like retics that are splitting their face because they're pushing so hard.
Yeah.
If retics are able to push with that much force, it's because they have too much leverage and not enough space to spread out their body. They're confined in a small area and can put every pound of muscle they have into pushing on that area. The more width and the more length that they have, the less power they're able to force on what they're pushing because they don't have the walls of the side of the enclosure to use as leverage. So, some people will say try a smaller enclosure, right? Retics like small spaces. That's like an old 2000s type of retics like to be in small spaces.
Cram them in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Typically with pushing, it's like, try a bigger enclosure, try a smaller enclosure, your temps. But pushing is definitely a fun piece of keeping retics.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the temp part of it because similar, that happened, what would you say, in 2007? Carpet pythons in Morelia sort of made that shift to where we used to keep them in the typical python, 90-degree hot spot, 85-degree ambient, and that's just way too hot.
It's too hot, yeah.
And then to your point, a lot of this stuff really connected in my brain when I started seeing them in the wild. When you see them in the wild, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't anything like what I thought, right? You're talking about it's 80 degrees, where these retics would be 82, but then they're underneath the canopy, and these micro habitats that they are in can really be different than what we think a lot of times. So
we were gauging it with like it's 110 in Darwin. It's like, well, yeah, but the snake isn't out there. Like it's not sitting out at 110 degrees. Right. It pokes its head out and then it goes and hides in a 70-degree cave. Well, like that's
yeah. To Owen's point, right? Another thing with retics is there are a lot that you find. Well, not in some. A lot of times when you see wild retics, they always seem to be in caves trying to kill bats. But I remember when we're in Darwin, it's 100 10 degrees outside, you go in a cave, it's like 70 degrees. So
drastically cooler, and it's humid and moist, and that's exactly what Retic's like. And so a really big testament is when I was keeping on gradient earlier in my keeping, I was keeping on a gradient, and they were inside my house, and I would, I'd have the inside of my house. I never was like, when my collection started growing, I had my daughter, and I was like, I'm not changing the temperature of the house for these snakes. I got a daughter who needs to sleep in peace. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would have the house between 72, 74, and I would put the hot side at like 88. And at least one time for every one of my retics, they would run into pushing. I then was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and drop the hot spot to 86. And then I provided like an oil filled radiant heater to like bump it up to just consistently for the room they were in to be at 75, 76. That kind of reduced it a little, but some retics were still not liking it. Ever since I've moved my snakes in my garage, and I kind of like, I call it the lab because lab exotics, but also in my mind, it's like Mission Indonesia. What I try to do with my humidifier, dehumidifier, and my mini split that I have going, I try to replicate Indonesian humidity and temperature ranges throughout the day, right? And ever since I moved them into the garage and I'm doing that, like I rarely see pushing. And then when I see pushing, I'm like, why the hell are you pushing? And I go back to my feeding notes and I'm like, shit, I haven't fed you in 3 weeks. That's why.
That's why.
Right.
Yeah.
So temperatures are a really big factor. And the switch over to ambient has massively just like almost, I don't want to say eliminated because I still see it from time to time, but in terms of like overheating, doesn't happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just a quick question with the ambient. When you go to night, are you turning the heat off completely, or are you letting that just drop down to a certain
like an umbrella, like a safety net? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So really, it depends at the time of the year. So like right now, San Antonio, Texas is going through a heat wave. So if I turn my mini split off overnight, the temperatures still creep up in my garage to 84.5 degrees.
Oh, that's right. You got it. Yeah.
Right. Because
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's so hot out. So really what I tried to do is during the really, really hot times of the year, I almost do like a reverse cycling where during the day, I'll turn the AC on to be cooler, and during the night, it'll be hotter. But then for the winter, it's kind of the opposite. But ultimately, my range is 79 degrees to 84 degrees.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm even flirting with the idea of just year round going lower. Like I don't know why not. And especially now because I'm going to be getting a green tree python and keeping it ambient. I'm going to want to have that green tree python at 78, 77 at night if it's going to get to 82, 83 during the day.
Yeah, I mean,
they're another example of Morelia that was kept too hot.
It's
way too hot.
My roughies are dipping down right now. Yeah, their computer systems just clicked over, so they're dropping right now. They're 82, and then it's just going to go straight down until it hits like 76.
Yeah.
So
my sensors, when you look at them from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, it's basically just it's a mountain.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome.
That's how it should be. It's
yeah.
Right.
Not bake the hell out of it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially if you're going to keep, I think the whole, I don't know, maybe this is as I'm getting older or whatever, but my idea of like keeping is sort of going back to like when I was a kid and I would just stare at the snake in the tank and just be amazed at it moving around the tank, and I want to see it do things and see what it's supposed to be doing. And to me, that's sort of like where I'm trying to get back to, to have a smaller collection and be able to sort of have, I call it herping in my snake room, right? Because
I love that.
Yeah. And it's like my own little piece of Australia, sort of like, you have Indonesia, I have Australia, and it's just like I just want to go there and just, be able to see what my snakes are do, what they would do in the wild, as much as I could recreate that in a box.
Yeah. I literally got goosebumps listening to you say that, just because of the idea of, I started off and grew very quickly, and now I'm at the point where I'm like, no more new ones. even thinking about, reducing the collection. And, when people ask me, like, why localities, right? Why is like locality retics your thing? And I always tell people it's like bringing a piece of the wild into your home. Mm-hmm. And so what you just said just hit the nail on the head. And so, I have a vision for like the future. So my wife and I do plan 3-4 years down the road. We're going to get a piece of land or property, and have our house on there. And I'm going to have a 2,400 square foot building. And what I would like to do is in that building, I'm going to have one huge, massive walk-in that I'm going to rotate animals into. Right.
That's awesome.
But then I'm also going to just keep a lot larger enclosures, but do a lot more naturalistic setups with having, the foam to make caves and stuff like that. And ultimately, as a keeper and breeder of where I would like to be at that point is I would like them to have, like, I want to be able to observe that. Like you said, like being a kid just up at the glass, like at the zoo, watching the animals. I want to do that. But from a breeder standpoint is, it would be so nice if at one point, because again, these snakes aren't my income. I have my own job. I'm a therapist. I do that as a living. Don't get me wrong. The extra money on the side is great. But like I would like if I had things nailed down or could learn how to nail them down to where every clutch I did produce was maternally incubated. Like that's my end goal.
He's talking my language, Owen.
That's the end goal, is that I can have the ambient temperatures, I could have the naturalistic style enclosure, and I'm not talking about full bioactive, right? But because for larger constrictors, it's hard to do. But but to implement like rock and cave-like structures with using foam or using universal rocks or whatever the case may be, and having a good enough substrate dam in each enclosure to where you can build caves within the substrate and they can go into to breed, and that's where I mean, to be honest, the less I got to do, the better. So if you want to sit on those eggs, if you want to sit on those eggs, go for it. I'll let you.
I've been preaching maternal incubation since I started. The very first python I bred, I did maternal incubation, and me and Owen have gone back and forth over the years. And he finally did it once, but he's an artificial incubator guy, and that's fine, whatever. But to me, there's just something about going in and seeing the mom around the coils of these eggs, and then there's little tiny heads just pipped out, and she sort of like releases the coils. I don't know, man. It's so cool.
It is cool. I don't know why I chose my meanest carpet python to maternal incubate. Like that may have been a step in the wrong direction to try to get me to do it again. So yeah.
I want to even take it a step further. Like I want to have a camera. I want to notice at what time of the days they loosen the coils, they leave the eggs, they get back on the eggs. I want to open up the enclosure and tempt the eggs.
That was awesome.
I want to be able to. I guess like I got so caught up in the hype of being a breeder. And now that I'm seeing that like everyone and their mom wants to do it, and there's really no way. Like I originally was like, okay, I want to do full-time snake breeding and part-time being a therapist. But I can't tell you how far away from that I'm at where I'm at right now. I want to get back to just like observing, recording data, enjoying and loving every step of the process.
Yeah, man.
It is cool to watch them, like, because I was under the impression that she would be like fragile, or they would be like, I don't want to disturb them, but like every morning I'd come in, she'd be off the eggs, and I'd be able to check her out and what's going on, and then I even got to feed her a couple times. And then every night, right before I was turning the lights off, she'd be off the eggs again, just getting that final little heat before the panel changeover. And then she would just go on to those eggs. She'd be on them all night. So That's it was really sweet. Cool to observe that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my observations were, it's sort of like, you would see the mom actually like kind of scoop the eggs up, and she would move them over, right, closer to a hot spot, or move them away. I've seen it to where she's gone into her water bowl, and then she came back and wrapped the eggs and sort of tucked her head into the coils, to where my thinking is that she's trying to control the humidity. within those eggs.
Right.
I've seen it to where, again, just like to Owen's point, they leave, they bask, they come back. It's just really cool. Again, if you go herping at all, these are things that you don't necessarily get to see. It would be a rarity to be able to stumble upon a wild python, incubating eggs and seeing what they do.
Yeah.
And now you have like you have your own little snapshot of nature right there that you can just peek into at any point.
Right.
It's awesome.
And that's what I love about, the Morelia side of things. It's manageability and being able to actually provide naturalistic setups in a manageable way. And why I finally was like, you know what, I'm taking the dive into getting a green tree python, because I've wanted one for so long. And back in the day, I didn't want one because it was all the import information about they're difficult to keep and blah, 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 and this and that. And I'm not opposed of even down the road trying to establish and keep an import and everything like that. But I finally was like, if I can step into my garage and at least one snake a day want me dead, I can deal with a green tree python. Like it's not it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I like about it is that, for the carpets and for the green trees, it was very eye-opening to me. Me and Bill have talked over the last couple of years. I got to meet him, got to go to his place for the Arlington show. And, dude, the first thing that popped into my mind when I walked into his snake little house in the back was like, holy shit, could you imagine how many green tree pythons I would have right now if I didn't have 8-foot retic enclosures? Like that I was like, are you kidding? So like I don't know. I mean, just realistically being able to provide more for certain species because of manageability of size is like, it just seems very nice right now.
That's why I moved away from. Owen will tell you, like when I came into this, I was a large constrictor person, and I've moved away from that because of that reason. It's just like I love them. I think retics are probably one of the prettiest pythons around, but like I just don't have the capability to house it the way I would want to. And to me, I can. I don't know. I just can't. I can't do that anymore.
I'm right there with you. I would say I keep my snakes in enclosures larger than probably most breeders do, but I am still very unfulfilled in that aspect. And like I said, that's where the future holds, and that building that I want to do, and being able to provide more for less is really just what I'm gearing towards.
Very cool. What is your thoughts with the morphs with retics? Do you think that I always get this impression that like the retic world was trying to be the next ball python of the world and like trying to take over, and
it's already there.
Yeah.
That train has already sailed. Got it. Okay.
It's already
and I
there.
think I see a lot of people, right? It's way different to produce a clutch of ball pythons to trying to hit the odds to produce the world's first type of thing to thing of retail. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a law of numbers, dude. Like, when you have 400 eggs. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, all right. So, and we spoke before this started, but in terms of that episode coming out, talking about the 1970s to 2014, it's the world's first era, right? Mm-hmm. World's first. I mean, you hear it left and right with retics. We're slowly but surely kind of closing that chapter of history with retics. But the only reason why it was never to the level of ball pythons with world's first was because we stopped importation and we couldn't get new cool shit. So that's so we kind of are handcuffed in terms of having 5,000 morphs, right? Mm-hmm. One thing that I actually think that's really cool about the ball python community, some of the breeders in the ball python community actually are very smart people and understand genetics and understand polygenic traits. And what they were able to do is they found a visual trait that might not necessarily be a recessive or a codom, so to say, but they studied and were able to find out how to reproduce this trait. And then they decided to name it a morph, right? Mm-hmm. the Retic industry loves to just stack on, Motley Phantom, Sunfire, Tiger, Poshet, OGS. It's just name stacking. It's like if a snake looks a certain way and you can produce that time and time again with those 2 or 3 morphs every single time, it's not a new name. They just they continue to call it the 2-3 name, but it's a dangerous game to play with the world's first when it comes to Retics, because number one, the world's first game is, I'm gonna throw the Super Dwarf and Dwarf out of the equation right now, because that was mainly a mainland thing. Now there's a whole separate race to make the US first Super Dwarf X morph, right? I'm even guilty on that as well. I have an Ocelot, one of the most sought after morphs in all of Retics, and you better freaking believe I'm trying to produce some Super Dwarf Ocelots ASAP, right?
Right.
But when you have a world's first race in mainlands, you have a lot of eggs and you have a lot of Retics, and you don't have a lot of good homes for these animals, and it creates a problem. And I think the biggest downfall of the mainland community, because if we're being honest, mainlands hit a glory phase. And then all of a sudden over the last 6 years or so, world's first aren't selling for $10,000-$15,000 anymore. People are begging people to buy these animals. I even know one person on my Patreon who got a world's first combo for the price of a pure Super Dwarf. And that's because that breeder was just I need to get rid of these animals, right? And so the mainland world's first craze has crashed. And what that's leading to is people are dropping prices drastically, which again we talked about earlier. Not good for people wanting to, you don't ever want to sell Retic cheap, because it ends up in the hand of an impulse buyer that gets neglected and rehomed. And Retics are probably, if not the number one, at least in the top 3 most rehomed or adoption type of process. And that's not okay for a large constrictor. But then there comes the other side, and the ugly side, or the side that people don't want to talk about, is what do you do when you have a clutch of 70 eggs and you're trying to hit on the odds? And, maybe 4 of those 70 eggs is what you wanted, but the rest of those eggs are poshets or, normal poshets, or just individual Tiger poshets for mainland, right? We haven't gotten there in the Super Dwarf craze because there's still such a high demand. But now you start to open up culling or freezing or feeding off to monitors or wholesaling off to a whole buyer, and not knowing what's going to happen with the animals that you just, you are the reason why they are living, right? So my thoughts and opinions on that. I will never personally intentionally cull animals to because of an overproduction or because of low valued animals. I know enough people now, especially with my Patreon, where I know some really good homes for people that would buy animals at a low price, or I could even give it to them and give them a good home. But number 2, I don't own monitors, at least right now. And I probably don't plan to own large monitors because I love them. But if we're being honest, they're way too much time. My dogs are enough. If I don't want a lizard trying to kill me, I got to spend 3 times.
Why am I doing that?
Right. So I don't have a monitor to feed them to. But even if I did, so I can understand I can empathize, and I can see the reason why people are saying that if I produce clutches and if they own a monitor, right? And they understanding that their plan is I'm going for this, and anything that has the potential to be a low value animal that is going to possibly end up in bad hands, it's better to turn into food for the animals that I have. Like I can see it. And again, it's not something that I would do, but at the same time, I have seen what neglected and abused retics look like. And it's not okay. And at the same time, here's where I always, when people feel very strongly and like very up in arms of like, how dare you do this? And which is a valid argument, by the way.
Right.
Because to try to tell people to remove emotion from an emotionally charged situation is unrealistic, right? I asked them this: if you can provide me an answer that tells me that why this is bad, but yet it's done in rabbits and horses and livestock and just about every other breeding of every other animal that's out there, if you can give me a factual reason on why it's not okay, like I'll hear out that argument and then we'll push for the greater community to change, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I think about it in the terms of like, you can breed the animals yourself knowing ahead of time that you are going to have monitor food that's probably one of the best dietary sources that a large monitor can eat. You know what that snake is eating. You know what the babies are being you have everything, right? The diet of the parents, the baby, and you're able to feed your animals, right? Versus possibly having that animal rehomed, neglected. You can give it an opportunity, but I've listened to your guys' podcast for a long time, and I know both of your beliefs on retics and retic keepers and breeders and how to keep retics. And let me ask you this: would you say that retics are generally kept very ethically and well, or would you say they're neglected most of the time?
Neglecting most of the time. I'm sorry. Did I answer too quickly?
Okay, so that's my only argument on why it's okay if a breeder can do that. But
yeah, I see it.
It's not something that I have the heart to do.
Yeah, I'd have a problem with it too. I don't think I'd be able to get over that hump. But
this is sort of why I got out of Jaguar carpets. Is that same reason, right? You know, it's like I personally had a problem with having to put animals down because they were too neurological jacked up, and then I thought, why am I even doing this? Like what? Like, I mean, carpet pythons to me, from my opinion, are like, you know, I love the looks of them. I love the different phenotypes that you're going to get from a clutch, and like, why do I need this special gene that's all jacked up? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Owen, he breeds Jags, and I have no problem with people that do it. But for me personally, it's just like I'm at this dilemma to where it's like, do I do this? Do I not do this? And then, you know, another part of it was, and you can relate to this, no imports are coming in. You're mixing, these localities, and you're mixing the morphs. And like at one point I was doing that, and I sort of thought to myself, these won't be misrepresented, and these won't become, a normal or a locality because the next person is going to be just as ethical as me. Well, that's just not true.
It's wishful thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like we can hope that.
Sure. Yeah. 100%. But, I just don't think that's reality. So I had to make a decision. Do I continue to do this, or do I not? I thought about throwing away half the clutch of eggs. Like, okay, I'm just going to I'm already rolling the dice with the odds. I'd rather throw the eggs away than throw the animal
but you'd
away.
Get all the Jags and have thrown away all the non-Jags.
Right. You're taking the gamble of it,
Yeah, that's a whole other different discussion, because that's popped up in recent, Retic talk as well. I'm kind of like a co-opener of a Retic group on Facebook, the Retic Alliance, and the group is really aimed for kind of ethical keeping and also to have these difficult discussions without it getting out of hand and that's a hot topic, and a lot of people are like, well, just throw away eggs, but then you're also throwing away odds at that point. And it's difficult, and I And that's where I go back to ethical breeding and keeping in terms of like, we need to stop overproducing. If we stop overproducing, this conversation that we're having is going to be much less and less and less relevant. And also, I just find it a little comical that the issues with Jaguar carpets, neurological issues, is also the Jaguar morph and Retics that have neurological issues.
Yeah, yo. At least they made it easy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should have changed Spider's name, and then it would just been Jag across the board. Yeah, if it's a Jag, it's horrible. Got
exactly.
it.
I think for me, to sort of what you were saying, it popped into my head. One of the questions that I had for myself, right, is this about money or is this about the animal, right? If it's about the animal, then I should have no problem throwing away these eggs and sort of dealing with whatever odds that are thrown my way. But if it's not about that, and it's really about like I made this investment in this animal, I want to sort of return in that investment. Right? Yeah, or
I want to be that guy that has his name in the book when they write that book. Yeah,
right.
When other people write that book. Yeah.
So is it ego? It's probably a lot of those things, and like I guess you have to just decide for yourself, like what I think. Yeah, it's there's a lot of questions there,
Right.
Yeah.
You want to know what's a funny point? And I caught myself early in the keeping and the breeding phase of like what I wanted and what I wanted to get to. But you want to know, like we talk about like in terms of like Lacey Act and our rights to keep these animals, which is very big for large constrictor keepers, right? It's always at risk.
Yes.
Yes. And we talk about how small our community is and how we need to go out and educate and how we need to do this because we're such a tiny percent of the population. But so many people are trying to reach this like fame of like this tiny insignificant level of people in the world. It's like, it's funny. It's comical that like we're, a lot of us are chasing this idea of like, I want to be the biggest of the biggest in this industry. That's literally nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's a funny concept that just kind of snapped in my mind, but
100%.
You could be the best retic carpet breeder, whatever. Most people aren't going to know who the hell you are. Like it's just how it goes.
No, I mean us in the retic world won't know who you are.
Exactly. You won't even know. Like I'm the greatest turtle breeder around. Who the hell are you? Like it's so yeah.
Another thing that pops into, I get a lot of shit because I haven't bred in how many years has it been?
I do. I
had one clutch.
We get complaints. I'm just saying there's a lot of
it's been 2 years. I've taken 2 years off.
Yes.
That's a good reset.
I think the reason is because if I'm being honest, I follow, it's nowhere near what retics or ball pythons are on Morph Market, but you're looking at, 400 carpets. And if the same 400 carpets are still on that page over and over and over again, do I need to produce more?
Right.
Like I guess it goes back to that ego thing, right? It's like, why do I want to do? It would be nice to pay for the food or whatever, but similar to you, I sort of came to a realization that I do not want to sell snakes for a living. I thought I did in the very beginning. I thought it would be awesome. I thought it would be great, but no. I don't want to have to, because I think this is where the problem comes into play, because you have people that have to put food on their table and feed their families. And it becomes like, okay, if I don't do this, then we don't eat. The bills don't get paid. The mortgage doesn't get paid. Lights go off, whatever it would be. And it really makes it tough.
And when you do that, being a large constrictor breeder.
Yeah.
Dear God.
It's a mess. It's a lot of life being brought in that doesn't necessarily need to be brought in. I mean, the fact that you say 400, right? And I know that that might have been a number that you just threw up, but like that would be great if that was all that was on Morph Market for retics.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but that number, but also that's
it fluctuates
just
between like 3 something and 400. But
that's just Morph Market. Like how many?
Oh, there's so much more.
Exactly. Like how many you go into the Python portion of Fauna Classified? It's majority retic, and other things like that. So there
is a massive overproduction, and I think a lot of recent light with some of the information that has been out there in regards to the Slither Files, Phantom Pruitt has actually again that the Retic Alliance page, there's a post about how seeing all of this and seeing Morph Market and where everything's at on like if the question was, is anybody rethinking their breed? And so many, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see so many people saying that they were going to just try to focus on 2 to 3, 4 clutches. That's really because those people saying 2, 3, 4 clutches are the same people that are also capable of doing 10 clutches, right? Like, so that's pretty powerful. So I'm really hoping that at some point it kind of snaps that like the snakes that we love breed and they produce a lot of eggs, and so maybe we should do just a little bit less of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we preached that on here about carpet pythons, it was sort of like, well, who are you to tell me what you... I don't know. My approach has always been, I'm only going to breed what I can keep.
Right.
So if I breed a clutch and I have to keep the whole clutch for a year or whatever. I mean, a lot of times they make fun of me and they call it Burke in the clutch because I would hold things back.
The whole thing.
For so long. Because I want to see how they hatch out.
People have to beg to get babies.
Worms, And
I think it's his own way of driving, scarcity. It's like everybody wants the one carpet that Eric Burke will not let you have. It's like, well, hell. I mean, I really want it. Yeah.
It's a great marketing strategy, and I'm not going to lie.
It is. It is.
I've even talked about the idea of just I've this whole thing with the Slither Files and everything. It's really made me realize that like I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to post my animals, and I'm going to put all of my time and energy to my Patreon. And outside of that, if you message me, I'll have a conversation, but I'm really kind of wanting to be done communicating in Facebook groups. And speaking just kind of on that aspect of just like even the market, like the marketability of like, oh, this person is not like, this person produces good stuff, but, isn't seen active on social media, kind of even drives up that hype of like, but this person's going to give you the time and day, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So absolutely. Like if you're keeping back clutches and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to let this one go 18 months old, right? People are going to jump on that like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I actually, kudos to you. I mean, for you to take a step back and say like, it's been 2 years now. And because you actually had awareness of the market and saturation, I wish 50% of people had that insight and awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want it to be a long-term thing. I think that I think of like somebody like in our community, Nick Mutton's kind of the guy when it comes to carpet pythons, and he kind of does this for a living, and that's his thing. I don't know. I know this might sound beta male-ish, I guess. I don't know, but like, why am I going to step on his parade? He's a friend of mine. Why would I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like. Why am I doing? Like, what's the point? Like, it's different if I'm producing something because, oh man, I want it. Like, we were talking about before you came on. It's like there's this line of carpet pythons that sort of got lost because people weren't paying attention to it, and now we have
everything else.
Me and Owen and this guy Eric, we sort of have a trio going, and we're going to try to put them back. And it's just normal carpets. There's nothing about them. The stripes, some of them are red, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But to us, they're cool. I don't know. We just love them. And we want to put them out there so that they're back out into the world again,
Right.
And,
they got
to
some
me,
sort
that's
of
an important clutch.
But they got some sort of cult status now because they're gone.
Yeah,
so
that's like the same thing with locality retics, right?
Right. Yeah. You want what you can't have, I guess.
You want you can't have, no matter what it is.
Right.
So
I just want anything that's a wild type that I can actually trace back to the islands.
Yeah.
That's what I keep doing with more of these wild type colubrids. Yeah.
That's what I want. I just want to be able to actually look at an animal and just know that, like, yeah, your descendants are from this part of the world. And I want to see how you behave compared to your supposed, same species from, 500 miles away.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys, we were talking about ethics of breeding, right? Do you, well, for you, do you sort of look at the idea of sort of crossing those localities and like what's your line in the sand to where you sort of look at that kind of stuff?
Everybody's got one.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I will say this. I'm usually a lot more reserved to take a pure locality female to something that is not pure, right? However, as time has gone by, like let's use a locality, for example, Kalatoa. Like 2-3 years ago, I was very strong-headed about like I will never breed a female Kalatoa to anything else but a pure Kalatoa. But from 2022 to 2023, there was probably like 9 clutches of Kalatoas produced. They're already starting to get to the point where they're being produced left and right? So now I'm a locality person in general, but I also have this like childlike experiment scientific brain that I have, and I am not opposed whatsoever about crossing localities to see what phenotypic expressions come out, because I have to understand from my standpoint, I'm a purist, right? But I also understand the market and how most people are into morphs, right? And now the only way that we are going to make morphs look better is if we selectively breed what that morph is. So morphs, in my opinion, go into different categories. They're color enhancers, color reducer, pattern enhancer, pattern reducer, or some of them have both that are reduced and enhanced, right? And so what's cool about the locality stuff is you could take a very small locality, breed it to a medium locality, still make a manageable size retic, but create a visually aesthetic animal that no one's really ever seen before that can then make the whole morph game look way better and enhance the morph game, right? And so that's for buyers and for people to do in terms of like locality crosses to use to make their morphs look better. The few morphs that I work with, I'm just using pure localities to make look better, but I don't have really anything too much against taking different localities. And maybe if Indonesia decided to pull in Australia and have 10 different subspecies, I would feel differently.
Right.
But as of right now, we have Malayo-Python reticulatus, we have Jampionus, and we have Saputrii.
Right.
And so we're not working with a lot. And these are for hundreds of islands, thousands of islands of retics. So, for me, I don't, like, for example, in the retic game, I don't mind because taking let's say a Halmahera locality retic, super dark, chocolatey browns, black, beautiful animal, and then taking it to a Kalatoa that's known for being small, that lacks black, that lacks color, it's silver and brown basically, is going to create an animal that is smaller than a Halmahera, but way better looking than a Kalatoa, right? but as a green tree python lover, like obsessed, and I've read the complete chondro 100,000 times. Right. I am way more plugged in to the chondro groups on Facebook than anyone realizes. Like I've been a stalker for 10 years. Right. I know my shit when it comes to green tree pythons. I would never in a million years dream of taking an Amaru or Aru to a Maruk or to a, like, that's not something I would ever do. Right. And I don't know why it's any different. You know, to take a Maruk or Maruke or however people call it to a
whatever makes you feel good,
right, to a designer, like go for it if you're into the designer stuff. But like if I had a pair of Aru and I had a pair of a Maruk, I'm not crossing them. Are you out of your mind?
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say I don't know why. For me internally, it's different with retics than chondros, but I don't know.
I think, I think the difference between the carpets and the chondros, right, is that, chondros sort of like they had these chondros, and they came in and they bred them, right? And they put them together. And at the time, there was sort of like they were all green trees. And the more and more work was done, and they separated them out. Now there's 2 species. And they did some more work, and now there's a couple subspecies, and there's a couple things. But too little, too late. That ship has sailed. So I think in the chondro world, they sort of don't look at they sort of look at us as like a little bit nerdier on the carpet python side, because we're dealing with
that's really nerdy, by the way. If a chondro keeper is saying that the carpet keepers are more nerdy, that's really nerdy.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But I think we're more focused on not breeding that stuff, because we are never getting
nothing. It's never coming.
In my lifetime, it's probably not going to come, right? Very rarely we get these little ones that pop out, whatever, from the hole in Germany or whatever.
Smuggling, like smugglers that got caught in.
But they're just not coming. Yeah. So, you only have what you have. That's it. That's all you got. So if you go and you cross everything, then you sort of have this muddied up gene pool, sort of like what we're looking at the chondros, right? They sort of they had the same thing. And it's like, well, we don't want to be in that spot. But I think that's why they sort of just at least the people that I know, they sort of they do localities, and they're into the localities, but a lot of the people just sort of focus on the designers and just making a pretty snake, right?
You find your flavor, and that's where you go.
With that,
No. And I will say with Retics, the mixing of locality and muddling up and making it very muddy happened even before the importation ban stopped. It wasn't until the importation ban in 2014, 2015 where people actually were like, oh, let's now decide to preserve them, when 75% of the stuff that's out there we can't even identify as pure locality.
Right.
And so now we see ourselves, definitely wanting to keep true to preserving. I even hate using the word preserving, because that gives the impression that that the majority give a shit and majority don't. But but it's we've had to try to redo damage done from the 90s and 2000s, and so I guess from my aspect, it's like I have the animals I need to produce pures, and I also have the animals I need that if I want to have some fun and cross them up, it's going to be done intentionally. It's not just because, right? So, my frustration is when it comes to people that are like, that secretly, knowingly have the unidentified Superdorf and breed it to a Kalatoa and want to call things a Kalatoa. That's where the big issue in Superdorf and Dwarf Retics come from, is really just being able to identify what is actually legit and what's not. And something that I'll share on here that a lot of people in the Retic community are probably going to be hearing for the first time, but there's a very infamous line of TK Kalatoa Superdorfs. And I can't tell you how many times that when you look up the information and lineage of these animals, is they were once called Superdorf because island locality tracking wasn't a thing, and then all of a sudden one day the TK guy decided to just start calling them Kalatoa because that was popular.
Oh God!
And I can't tell you how many of these TK Kalatoas look like Madu or Honey Islands, right? And so it's like, so that's why I have a TK Kalatoa male, but in terms of like my pure stuff of pure Kalatoas, it's a line that I established from wild caughts, and if I get any other Kalatoas to make pure Kalatoas, it's going to be other lines. But that's the big hang up in Superdorfs right now, is if people are actually having what they have.
Right. So more of a misrepresent.
Oh yeah.
Then you have a mainland sized snake that was promised to be,
Well, not even like, I mean, there's definitely that, but also in the idea of like, there's incentive for people to lie, to call their stuff pure locality Superdorf, like a Kalatoa, Madu, Karampa, or Kayuwati, because you can sell just a year and a half ago I was selling a pure Kalatoa females for $3K, males for $2Ks, pairs for $4Ks, and that's even on the like mid to lower end. Like there's some people that are charging $5K for females, and they'll get it. I also just believe in not ripping people off. But anyways,
Yeah.
Right.
But aside from that is you take that same animal and it's just a pure Superdorf unknown locality, and that animal is only worth $1,500.
Right.
So people have incentive to lie about the lineage and information.
I think that's true across the board. I mean, carpet people have incentive to lie. We had that back when, what is it? Somebody bred a carpet to a Maclots, and they were like, "Oh, look at this crazy morph." It's like, yeah, well, it looked like a weird colored carpet python, and the incentive to lie was always there, just to say that it's pure, just to get it
I
gone.
want this snake produce eggs for me. I don't.
Gee, I wonder why. It's like, the incentive to lie is all over the place in the reptile community. I mean, there's always the rumor whenever there's like a line of snakes that just doesn't do well. It's like, well, that's because the person who started it turned the incubator up a little bit higher to cook them all, so he'd be the only guy that got it. It's like, all right, well, or it's a crappy gene. Like, I don't know.
Have we talked about ethics?
They keep saying that word, and I'm trying to figure out where the hell it's from. But but
let's switch gears for a second. I guess this has to do with ethics, but like I want to talk about the Retic Lounge, and I think one of the things that we struggled with here with Morelia Python Radio was that sort of like I think maybe what you struggle with guys like Jay Brewer, who's sort of the the mainstream forefront, maybe not the Retic forefront, but the person that people are looking at when they see, snake YouTubes or whatever, that's probably a word. But definitely not ethical, in my opinion, when it comes to breeding Retics. But, I love what you guys are doing, and as far as like trying to get the correct information out, maybe and trying to get people on that know the information and get out there and share it, and I just see a lot of like the same type of thing. Like me, and we're just starting out when we sort of were doing this, and I think you guys talk about that a lot, to where it's like you don't claim to be the experts, you just get the experts on to talk to you, and that kind of thing.
Right.
So like maybe I don't know, how did that come about, and like what's the whole deal with the Retic Lounge?
Yeah. With our tiny little 600 subscribers, I'm super proud of it. So this was something that. Oh man. Okay. So I'm going to hold the whole Jay Brewer and kind of trying to fight against that. And my thoughts of that, I'm going to hold that in the air while I talk about just kind of where the Retic Lounge came from. And then I'll address that. But, all right. So I tell people I'm the most introverted extrovert that they'll ever meet, meaning that I love social connection, but I also don't like to just throw myself out there. And so, as I have been, I again, my first Retic was in 2018, but I was plugged into Retics very early on, and learned a lot of my stuff on YouTube. And as I was keeping Retics, I was hearing multiple different ways, things that worked, things that didn't work. But what I realized after my first couple breeding seasons is that there wasn't a place, there was kind of a gap to be filled. And this gap was experiential information that was geared towards individuals that were new at keeping or have been keeping but want to get into breeding. Okay. And I think the appeal of like the whole approach of like, I'm not an expert, and my co-host Nathan Katz is not an expert, is it allows it to be more of a down-to-earth type of vibe, where people can openly discuss what they've done, their mistakes, and ultimately we were trying to build a community where people could feel free to learn. And as far as I'm concerned in the Retic world, if you look on a podcast platform or on YouTube, there are very, very few actually like informative and honest, right? Like honest, even if it hurts business, platforms out there. I'll throw one out there. Reach Out Reptiles has a great platform for people that are, I mean, that's essentially his marketing strategy, is getting people to understand that Retics can be a manageable size, and he's getting people, and he does these quick 10-minute long videos that have demonstrations, and it's productive and looks beautiful. But you're hearing it from a guy who has a reputation of being the source of, like, you know, he's the god of superdoors, right? And so I thought of like having a podcast, but I just never had the balls to do it. And then one day I was just like, all right, I'm going to ask someone. And I hit up Nathan, and Nathan was, he's like, yeah, I'm down. And Nathan was kind of like, me and him were kind of on that level together, new at breeding, haven't been keeping for a long period of time. And we made it a very good point to make sure that this was something that was, a collection of information that we have learned and we are presenting, or our experiences in regards to what we're doing, but ultimately just providing a community in place for new keepers and breeders to connect and share their experiences. And for me, like me more than Nathan. Nathan is like, I don't care about followers, likes, subscribers, things like that. I'm the opposite. I kind of want to see those numbers increase, not because I want to be a YouTuber, but because I want the information to be more accessible, and I want the algorithms to actually show up on YouTube.
Sure.
For people to actually listen, people. Right? Yeah. But because every other Retic podcast that was out there was all interviews, right? Tell me where you're from. Tell me when you got into Retics. Tell me what you love to do, and let's just shoot the shit. And it's like you can. There's bits and pieces of those podcasts that you can really hold in and gather information, but none of it was actually informative base.
Right.
And I asked Nathan when I talked to him. I said, "Hey, like, now that we've had an idea of like what the Retic Lounge, what we want it to be like, I was trying to get the idea of like." I wish this stuff was available for me when I was new.
Yeah.
Instead of having to actually, I'm happy for the mentors that I've had and being able to talk to people. But, if this information's available for new keepers and breeders, why not, right? So we jumped in, we started it, and we're almost a year in. I think our first episode launched August 21st or 22nd, and around this time last year, we were recording several episodes like to have in the bank, because we thought that we weren't going to be able to keep up with the weekly post.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, kudos to you guys for just the longevity aspect of this, because now that I'm in almost a year, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of sacrifice and time. My wife right now is about to get home from work, and I told her like, hey, I'm going to be on a guest on a podcast. And she's like, more snake shit. Like,
yeah.
Right. So, So I am, now that I actually know what it takes to get into it, like people like you that I've been listening to for several years now, it's like, damn, like this is pretty crazy to, we're just going on a year and I feel super accomplished, let alone these people that have been going for a decade. But,
Any day now we're gonna quit. Like I'm waiting for it. Like we keep pushing.
It's
like,
well deserved, to be honest.
Yeah, any day now. Any day now. Eric's gonna be like, and we're done. Yeah.
So that's kind of just what the Retic Lounge was geared towards, and we've had a lot of positive feedback. Like we haven't had any negative. I mean, there's maybe been like less than a handful of negative comments and things like that, but
right.
Where I feel like we're really struggling to reach is, again, egos play a part, right? And so when you have these two noobs talking about topics that they don't have too much experience with, it creates a little hate, and it creates a tension, and it creates, I don't know, like, I mean, should you have been doing this if you're that pissed off that I'm doing it? Like,
right.
But at the same time, I mean, we've grown to at most, I think we had 65 Patreon members. We're at 62 or 63 right now. We have an amazing community. And I didn't think that So like the subscribers aren't there, the views aren't there, but like the community that we're building off to the side, which is really what our goal was. We got a good amount of people. I was not expecting to have 63 plus, Patreon members to follow 2 people that really are still trying to figure out what the hell we're doing. And it's been nice.
Yeah, it's funny. Me and Owen can relate to that too. Like we got a lot of hate in the beginning because they're like, "Why are these guys doing it?" And I was like, "Well, you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't. Right. So here we are."
And I want to thank Nathan. Like Nathan pushed me to turn it into a video format. Because I talked to him and I was very strong headed and like I just want to do a podcast, like an audio podcast. He's like, we got to do video. And I'm like, I don't want to do video. And I was like, fine, we'll give it a shot. I edit all this bullshit. So I was like, more work for me. But I can't thank him enough for pushing me out of my comfort zone to doing that, because I didn't think that, now when I go back and I look at the episodes and I'll post clips and things like that, like not a big deal that my face is on camera.
Right.
But like before I was like, I didn't care for that. Like I just wanted to be informative content. And if it's just informative content, why the hell do people need to see me on camera?
Yeah.
100%.
Right. But that's just where we are right now in terms of receiving information. And fortunately for a lot of our episodes, it can be entertaining. We have fun with each other. Having a co-host and being a co-host with someone, it's a challenge at times to find times and schedules and agreements but yeah, I just if there's anything that like I would give up a lot and stop doing a lot before I stop doing the Retic Lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ditto. It's another reason why I cut the collection down,
Drop of a hat, I will ditch NPR. Like, oh my God. I have one more bad Wednesday. I'm out of here. Oh my God.
No, I really did. I really.
If I didn't have those contract obligations, I'd be gone already. But
yeah, right.
I was piss poor negotiating it, young Owen. Yeah.
No, but I really do. I really enjoy what you guys do, because I'm a Python lover. I love all Pythons, and it was great to finally have people talking. I guess it's like it's teaching me about retics that I wouldn't normally get exposed to, right? Because I'm not in the retic community per se. I will see things from time to time, and certain people that I am friends with or whatever, there's satellites of in that community or whatever. But I don't know. I just really liked it. And the Patreon is the Discord thing that you got going on is really cool. I'd like look in there and I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
It's active, right? It's almost overwhelming.
Yeah. Like, holy shit, 25 unread messages.
Right. Yeah. No, we have a great Patreon group, and it's just good to hear from you saying that, considering how long you guys have been doing this, and we're just trying to be honest and give a realistic standpoint of what it's like to keep a retic, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, because the last thing that I want is for people to have a fairy tale picture of what it's like to have a retic or a Superdorf retic or whatever, and just be overwhelmed and scared of that animal, right? Yeah. Like that, and that's the reality for some people. There's a lot of mainstream stuff in the Superdorf community about certain sizes and them being this small and this big, and there's videos on YouTube from big YouTube people that they make great pets, and we're just here to give you both sides.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
100%. Cool.
Yeah, and as far as the whole J thing, and how we're trying to combat that, to be honest, it's not even a thing, because if we're going to be objective, if we're going to sit back and we're going to look at the people who actually provide views and comments and entertainment for Jay's videos or for any clickbaity or videos that basically portray our hobby in a negative way. Because let me tell you, I have never once been bit or struck by a female pulling a clutch of eggs.
Right.
But most people would tell you that shit, don't pull a clutch of eggs from Retics because they'll kill you, right? Because of what they see online. And what I've had to sit back and I've had to realize is it's a battle that can't be. So if you look at the people who are actually viewing it and giving it attention, it's not us. It's not the Retic community. And it's not the reptile industry. It's the general public. And I had to come to the realization, and I think we all need to at some point, but none of us are going to have a conversation of Jay and tell him to stop doing what he's doing. He's going to listen. Yeah. Or anybody else that is doing that for views and for essentially for money, because, the views and the followers, it all turns into an income. If Jay lost his ability to receive income via YouTube and all his other social media platforms, he'd have to shut everything down. So he's going to do what he does to make successful. And so I'm not here to try to, the Retic Lounge in general, or just, I think the industry needs to hop on board in the sense of like, let's keep pushing good information out for the people that want to receive the good information, because at the end of the day, people have tried to get Jay to stop. And guess what? He's about to have a reality TV show. So that didn't work.
So clearly we've been doing well.
Right. So what we need to do is just combat that attention-driven animal keeping, videos that are out there, and just really provide wholesome content.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. That really rang true with me there for a second, that it's like a different community. I think like I'm always thinking in terms of like, because Morelia is kind of a niche part of the reptile hobby, right? And it's sort of like you see these more mainstream, to your point, like the clickbaity type of stuff, and they'll go on and they'll talk about them, and it's like, that's just not right, and it's just like, wow, what are you doing? And I would always feel like all the work that we're trying to do is getting unraveled by what in that mere seconds is doing, and it's like, why are they, and I guess maybe it is a little bit ego, I don't know, but it's sort of like, it's not that it's not that I'm looking to be the best or us, but we want to get that information out there to the people that, it's going to benefit, and they're going to get the correct information, and it's frustrating when you're trying to do it the right way and you can't get the views or the clicks or the this or the that. And you have somebody else that comes along and, but I guess that's just something you just have to come to grips with and just accept that, this is my community and I'm fine with that,
Right. And that's essentially what we're trying to build. And, Nathan would definitely be 100% on board with that statement. For me, I'm still wanting more views and clicks and people to be on. And again, it's not because of again, the last thing that I want is to be an influencer or a YouTuber.
Right. Yeah.
I just want the information out there. But what really sucks about, the infamousy that people like Jay or, and I'm going to say this kind of cautiously, but, like Nerd, for example, like Kevin McCurley as an individual, probably by far the most experienced, intelligent, understanding of Retics of anybody out there, period, right? And he used to provide so much amazing content that was educational, and unfortunately with just who he has in the driver's seat right now, things are more clickbaity than usual, right? And so the frustrating part is that other communities, other reptile communities, geckos, ball pythons, carpet pythons, chondro keepers, they look at these guys as a way to define who the hell I am.
Correct.
Right? And that's the frustrating part is like, I promise you that like everybody in the retic industry that's actually a breeder and who's been around for a good deal wants Jay to stop. Like we have been trying so many different ways. And it's a battle that you can't win because he has free autonomy. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about America, right?
Yeah.
Is free will, capitalism, right? All this good stuff that makes people able to do what they want to do, and they do it well. And that's what gets attention. But I just want to be a source right now on your guys' platform to make sure that people understand that I promise you, like 90% of the community do not side with and agree and promote that kind of stuff. Like we are against it. And so that is not who we are. That is just who the handful of people are that just get the most attention.
Right.
Right.
I guess we just got to keep plugging away, man. That's all.
Yeah.
Little by little. And hopefully we make an impact.
Right.
Just chip away until it wakes down. We were you mentioned it a couple times, and we were talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the community. Can you give us a little insight of how you got involved with the current situation with Samson Pruitt?
Yeah.
And all that stuff that was going on there.
Yeah. First and foremost, with Samson Pruitt and with the Slither Files and Slither Incorporated or Slither Exotics or Casabel, his wife, who is, who has 60,000 something followers. So it's discussing the things that have happened. And for those of you that aren't aware, there's been, I gained access from multiple employees of over 200 pictures and videos and statements of true animal neglect, abuse, maltreatment, just things that you probably couldn't envision as a reptile lover in your nightmares. It
was bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
So long story short, in terms of just the very early routes, is unfortunately before I even bought my first retic, and my first retic was from Samson Pruitt. He was kind of a mentor very early on. He was for any of you that know him or don't, he's very, very much a narcissist. He's a smooth talker, this greater than life mentality. And what he has a phenomenal ability to do is take young individuals or people that are new in an industry, provide them hope, clarity, a vision, promises, all this bullshit, to make you feel like you got someone good in your corner. I kind of fell into that and got my first snake from him. And then I started hearing chirps as I started connecting more in Facebook with other people and about his, dogfighting, the truth of that, all that stuff. And distanced myself. And I made a public post on why I broke a Facebook Messenger breeder agreement with him. Again, This was the first snake I ever got from him that we did a breeder. So I bought the animal from him from 50% and would send the first 2 clutches over to him, and we would split those clutches 50-50. Right?
Okay.
So this kind of breeder loan breeder program. So instead of spending $1,500 as a broke just out of college person, he gave me the opportunity to get my dream super dwarf animal for $750 for half off. Right? As I started learning more and more about his reputation, behavior, owing people tens of 20s, 30s, 40s, thousands of dollars on feeders and different things.
Jesus.
Clearly, at that point, as I was much more plugged in and informed, was like, okay, business-wise, probably not a good decision to send him all the animals I just produce, because I probably won't see that money and I'll just be another one of those people he owes money to.
Right.
So he messaged me when I first bred that female, and he's like, hey, why didn't you message me about the mail to use and, remember all this stuff. And this was already when I had checked out and was like, this isn't happening, but I just hadn't informed him yet. Mm-hmm. That's when he messaged me, I told him, I was like, call me on the phone. We'll talk about it. He refused to call me. He wanted proof of the conversation. And that's when I was like, if anyone has engaged with conversation with Samson online via Messenger, he's a bully. He harasses you. He manipulates things. He's a pain in the ass to talk to on Messenger. And so I was like, not doing it. Call me or we're not talking. We didn't talk on the phone, and he continued to threaten me about making it public, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to get ahead of the game after he threatened me on my birthday in 2022. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. If this guy's going to do it, I'm just going to throw it all out there. I provided everyone the information, the screenshots of the lying, the deceiving, all the bullshit that he put me through. And I decided to, that happened. And I got contacted by several different people about information, and was sent, a handful of photos in regards to the neglect, kind of the beginning of the Slither files back in December of 2022. But it wasn't indisputable evidence for me to say that this is Samson Pruitt's animals, right? There was nothing that could prove that. And this person who sent me the pictures was supposed to send me like 50 more. But for their own reason and fears of threats that they received from Samson, just kind of stopped talking to me.
Okay.
So that's when I started reaching out, and I remembered back in just some of the people that I made connections with that worked for him. And I can't remember if they reached out to me or I reached out to them, but they told me like, hey, I have so much information on abuse, neglect, blah, blah, blah. And after I received those handful of pictures, I kind of was like, I need to pursue this shit. And not just because I'm pissed off that he was a dickhead, but because like I did not imagine the type of neglect that he was doing in the pictures that I saw. And I was like, this needs to be told. And so after convincing and finding a very cryptic way of just like this person, I had to convince them to send me a thumbnail drive through the mail.
Okay.
Because they didn't want an electronic track. They didn't want to send me an email. They didn't want to do a Dropbox. They didn't want to do anything that would have their email involved. They did it, and they gathered information and pictures from 3 different employees. And I received that information April 22nd of 2023, right?
Okay.
And so, yeah, I got a hold of that information. I started doing behind the work scenes. I worked with Phil at USARC. I sent all the information to Darian. I was very scared to go public at first. I mean, I don't know what the hell to do with this information. I'm a large constrictor keeper who our rights are being,
constantly under fire.
Under fire. I'm like, let me like try to consult with some people first before I decide to be a dickhead and just like post them everywhere, right? So I was able to I gathered some insight and direction from Phil. Phil from USARC was supposed to go one way, but he stopped reaching out to me. So at one point I was like, this needs to go public, because what a lot of people don't understand is that I received the pictures in April that provided me the substantial evidence and proof, and he moved locations. He was starting back in like October of 2022, but finished off and was fully moved in January of 2023. And so one thing that people have to realize is it doesn't take someone who has to be a genius to realize if you have neglected, like disgusting animals, you're not going to move them to a new facility.
Right. Yeah.
So the ability to get law enforcement and things involved, it just wasn't going to happen. So I was like, I'm going public, because the only way that we're going to bring this to people's eyes and try to get him quote unquote canceled is to finally let people see everything for what it is. So I use Rodney as a platform to get the information out, because anybody who's listening that's a Retic keeper or breeder, understands that Rodney is seen as a dickhead. He's super intelligent. He knows Retics more than anybody. He has an online persona that is very different than who he is. And that online persona gets attention.
Yeah.
So I gave some images to Rodney, had him do a hype video. We released all the images. We did an interview with the ex-employee, and we started getting the information out there. Then we started getting backlash on why didn't you do anything? Why was it law enforcement? And they just didn't understand the timeline of events and everything that I was doing behind the scenes with Phil to try to get law enforcement involved. But we basically hit a dead end where if what was in the pictures wasn't happening right now at a brand new facility,
what's the point?
We weren't
there's no evidence. Yeah.
We weren't going to get him. Let alone the fact that Animal Control went over to the North Carolina facility and he was able to smooth talk his way to get them to believe that this was normal.
Oh my God!
That's from
Jesus Christ.
That's a statement from multiple employees that have said that were there walking with Animal Control, and Animal Control left with decaying smell in their noses, with the belief that this was typical.
Wow!
Come on.
So I sent the pictures over to Weston Warner of Wildfire Retics. He decided to create a website and link a bunch of different domains with Samson's name and Slither Inc. And we have the Slither files. And basically what we are trying to do is just continue to spread awareness of what this guy is doing. Just about everybody that is, every show has basically, as a result of seeing this, has banned him besides Repticon. Repticon actually made a statement that they replied to in emails yesterday, basically stating that unless there is legal action currently being taken, that they wouldn't do anything, which a lot of people were not very surprised with because of their... But I was pretty shocked with Reticon's reply and statement in regards to, we'll continue to let him do it if the animals pass the inspection and there's no legal action being taken, despite the insurmountable amount of proof that they were given. So that's the only show that has not flat out, other than like the really small ones, but.
Even Hamburg banned him.
Hamburg, right? and I used to see him set up at Oaks. Yeah.
Yep. There was another small shown, I think Ozone Reptiles or Ozark or, I don't know the name, but I gave them the information 2.5 weeks prior to one of their shows that he was vending. They were another one that decided to well, if he passes the vet inspection, right, then he can stay. And, they tried backpedaling and they're like, we don't condone this, and I'm like, well, if you're going to have him vend there after everything I just sent to you, you kind of do.
You're kind of okay with it. Yeah.
So where we're at with that is, want to continue to get the word out there. The biggest concern that I have is just making sure that people make the connection with his wife, who he groomed at 17 years old, by the way, which is when they first started dating, when he was probably already in his 40s.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that he groomed. So trying to make the connection between her and him, because she has a massive following. I'm talking about 60K plus followers on TikTok, and that's the big next push, is trying to elicit that. But this is a great example of what self-policing needs to do in order to get people out of an industry, because right now we don't have the ability to get him locked up.
Well, and that's always the thing, is that we like to say in the reptile community that we police ourselves and we like to push out the bad apples, but I have yet to see that ever happen. I mean, something happens, they blow up, they maybe move, or they change their name, or they disappear for a little bit, but there's always people that kind of come out of the woodworks. And I remember when you guys went public with the video, I did check out Samson's Facebook page, and there were people coming to his defense and calling you guys what was the thing I sent you, Eric? It's like, when all these do-gooders are finally out of the hobby, we can get back to the way it was. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, what is wrong with this? Like, the do-gooders. Yes, the people against animal abuse. How dare they? Like, my mind was blown, man.
This is one of those I want you guys to realize, like, once I obtained this information, I was like, okay, well, shit, I'm either going to burn or I'm just going to, like, I had to take a step back and realize, like, this is going to hurt me. But at the same time, like, I followed my, like, you got to understand, I've been in the industry very little. And I'm putting out information that's going after one of the largest retic breeders in the entire world.
Yeah.
And so, to be honest, it's going much better than I thought. So, yeah, I knew that I was like, you know what? If I'm going to say this is about the animals and not about what I'm making and my reputation, then it's got to be done. Like, because I was very, I had some sleepless nights in regards to the information I had and what I was going to do. And, I'm happy with the choice that I made, and very, very disappointed in the retic community. I see more action from ball python keepers, from other reptile communities, sharing the shit all over the place, and retic breeders are silent. And what that tells me is very scary stuff. Like, what that tells me is that if Garrett Hartle can't make a statement, if Jay Brewer can't make a statement, if Bob Clark can't make a statement, if all these big retic people can't make a statement about, like, very clear cut, dry animal neglect, retic neglect and abuse, why?
Yeah, I think part of the conversations that we were having when this was all going down was, I said to Owen, I said, number one, I would hope that I would have the courage to do what you did, right? To come out, to be the person that's, you're taking a chance of what's going to happen and how it's going to go.
Putting a lot of faith in the reptile community with that one. I mean,
which is ballsy as hell, because the reptile community
dear
sucks.
God, dude. Like,
number two, to your point, I'm like, I can't believe that Garrett hasn't said anything. Like, we know Garrett from when he came to Carpet Fest, and like, we've seen him at shows and stuff like that. And, like, I'm just like, okay, I guess Jay I can understand.
Right, because he's in the same boat.
Yeah, and I'm saying,
Owen, exactly.
I'm saying to Owen, like, wouldn't, like, if something like this happened in the carpet python world or the Morelia world, we'd have to be first in line. Drum,
we'd have to be
like,
first in line.
This is not acceptable.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't care if it was somebody that I knew. I don't care if it was whoever, because at the end of the day, to the point, if it's about the animals, then it's about the animals. Don't talk bullshit if you're not going to be, you're not going to back it up.
You have to be there, otherwise you're a hypocrite. Or what are you so afraid of? Because I guess if the facility is large enough, what's going on with your stuff that you don't want people to find out about?
Right. Yeah. And that's the scary part. And I think where a lot of people are scared is Samson Pruitt. Samson Pruitt recorded a conversation with Garrett Hartle, and when that information was released for a very brief moment until Samson Pruitt realized, like, oh shit, this is illegal, and took it off of social media.
Jesus.
I think that's really shown people that, like I think people are scared of the whiplash that might happen if they speak out against this because of their affiliation and ties with Slither. And so
that's why I say vote with your dollar, man.
Right. And vote with your dollar is something that Garrett has preached, and is something that is totally true, but that's essentially what we are trying to do. And there's been a lot of people that have talked about, like, what about the animals? What are we going to do with them? And, like, that empathy and that compassion for the animals' well-being is, like, I'm right there with you. But at the same time, when you look at the pictures of his collection, and the disease-ridden animals and the decay and the neglect and viruses that you can clearly see on the scales of these animals, we can't save them. At this point, it would be so much more honoring to their life to just, if we could ethically find a way to put them down,
Yes.
than to try to find homes or spread this huge collection to all of a sudden all over the country with who knows what it's infested with. And it's just, to be honest, it's a situation that like no one ever wants to be in. Like I hate that like this dude that originally reached out to me sent me these photos and I was just like, damn it. Like now I need to see if there's more. And I found out and there was more. And the entire situation is just totally, just disgusting. And it's unfortunate that it's going on, but I just want to, if I can give a message out, is don't be complacent. Don't let this fizzle and die down. Let this, like anybody who, like, I want this to be something where a podcast every single week for the next year is covering. Yeah. Because the more people that are aware, the harder it is going to be for these people to stay in business.
Yeah, 100%. Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you.
Yeah. The shit sucks.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't envy you, but
but I appreciate it.
Very much appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's the very first time where I've seen people and I've seen people publicly speaking negatively about me. It's my first experience of that, and I was like, I didn't think I'd ever get to that level, but I guess if I put this information out there, I knew what was gonna, positive and negatives, and
someone once told me that if you have people that are hating on you and you know that you're doing the right thing, then it's probably people that you don't want to associate with anymore.
Right.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I think that's what Nick told us our first season. If you have haters, you're doing it right. Okay. Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The amount of people in the Retic community that I've actually stood by and made addresses that kind of like defended him in a way. I'm friends, all these things. Like it's one thing that this is doing in a positive way. Even if I have to be a target and I get blown out of proportion. But again, back to what I said earlier, people are starting to realize overproduction is not okay. Animal neglect and abuse is not okay. They're starting to see the people that are holding their true colors and why they haven't made statements or why they're trying to defend him. And those people are starting to slowly be weeded out. So this was way more of a movement than I ever could have imagined. And if we can not let this one just fizzle out like the rest of the bullshit, then this one can actually have permanent change.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. All right, cool. Owen. End us on a positive
note. We'll end to a positive note. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Positive one would be, is there a species that you regret passing on in your herp career?
Yeah, 100%. Green tree pythons. Like I said, I'm
yeah, but you're going to fix that.
I'm getting my first, but like if I could have gone back in time 6 years ago, man, I freaking, how popping they are right now. Like, yes.
Yeah.
So you get one from
Bill Stiegel? You went Bill Stiegel for your first green tree python.
I went cynosis to a sickness, cynosis to Jaeger.
Nice.
Okay. All right.
Nice.
Yeah. Red hatchling. I think I'm like second or third on the red hatchling list. So,
I'm excited. Call them up and say that you have our official approval now, and you might get bumped.
There you go.
You might move you up the list. You might get second red. Yeah.
Might move you down.
Yeah. Or he might knock you down.
Me and Bill have had some great nights at his place during Arlington, and I can't appreciate the guy enough.
Yeah.
And he's gonna show up at Carpet Fest and then just be like running around your front yard again, dude. Like,
yeah. Yeah, he's a good time.
Yeah,
he is.
He's a time. He's a something. Yeah. So but that'll be fun. You can get ushered into the. Do you fear that the green tree python will be a gateway drug to get all these retics out of here? I need all these green tree pythons.
1,000%. I've again, okay. my passion and my true like my favorite reptile in the world is green trees. Always has been.
Yep.
Right.
So, but that would be a good thing. Again, it goes back to space, to time, to the well-being of the animals. And so, like, if the green trees are a gateway into me getting much smaller animals in good size enclosures and getting rid of larger animals, like, it is what it is.
It's so big. Yeah. Very good.
Cool.
Oh man, Lucas, it's been great. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
This has been one of the most fun I've had on a podcast. I appreciate both of you for letting me on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, throw out information.
Yeah, toss it all out there where they can find you.
Yeah, so social media, Instagram is going to be lab_exotics_. I got a weird snake flask for my symbol. It's black and green. Same thing on Facebook, Lab Exotics. But more importantly, the Retic Lounge. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Going to be probably branching out to other platforms as well. But if you guys have any reservations or information that you need to obtain about Retics, the Retic Lounge has you covered. And it'll be objective, legit information, not a sales pitch. We're not trying to get your business. This is just us sharing our experience and giving it to you guys. So,
yeah.
Very cool.
It's a very good podcast, so you should check it out. So, cool. All right, man. Thank you so much. And, hopefully... can't wait to see that green tree.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have you back on when you complete your shift over to green tree pythons. So you can talk to us about that.
I can't wait either. I'm trying to tell Pill. I'm like, dude, tell me what animal I'm getting. Like, let me see this animal.
Them. Damn it! Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. Very cool. All right, dude, how do we close this thing out, Eric? Or is there a different thing we do now? It's been so long.
We don't do that.
Oh, no. Okay.